Welcome everybody back to Wrestling Inc. Saturday night's main event watch-alongs. Tonight we are going to be watching the episode from January 2nd, 1988. But before we kind of get into that, we're going to discuss some of the late-breaking news. I'm sure everyone on social media has already heard that WWE has announced that Paul Heyman is out as creative director of Raw. WWE sent out a release to members of the press, including us at Wrestling Inc., that Paul Heyman is no longer going to be in charge of Raw. WWE is going to streamline the creative teams on Raw and SmackDown, which basically means they're both going to be under the direction of Bruce Pritchard. And we're going to discuss that a little bit. I'm joined here by Raj Giri and Justin Barrasso. Guys, Raj, what have you heard so far on this story?
Pretty much just that. I've been sending out a bunch of texts and you know trying to get more. I mean, Heyman and McMahon have had. McMahon has blamed Heyman on ratings in the past. This is nothing new. And Heyman, when you've seen some changes to the announce team and things like that, that was, in response to ratings and some of the blame for the ratings in the past. So, yeah, I mean, I think it's clearly that the ratings are probably a big factor. The ratings are at an all-time low. Each week is either the lowest or the second lowest in history, but so much of that is COVID. I mean, watching 3 hours in that performance center setting, it's exhausting. So I don't think there's with that environment, with the rules that Vince has in place, I don't see what anyone else can really do.
I agree. I don't see how you throw this on Paul, other than the fact he's the guy in that role, right? Yeah. I think they desperately need a crowd. Raw's a tough watch. I mean, in 3 hours, it's a tough go to have something run that long. I don't think it matters who runs it, and I think that it's a bad look internally to let go one of the most creative minds in wrestling, or let go from that position. But at the same point, maybe for the board or for the stockholders, they see change. I don't know if they know or care who Paul Heyman is, but they may care that Vince is making a change. So. Yeah, too bad. You never want to see anyone lose their position, but unfortunately.
What is interesting is that they've made it clear that Paul is going to stay on in WWE as a in on TV persona, as the advocate for Brock Lesnar, perhaps another wrestler. So he's still in the company. He wasn't fired from the company. He was just relieved from his official creative duties. Now, what's interesting is that even before, I know last June it was announced that Paul Heyman would be running the creative side of Raw, that Paul had a hand in a lot of storylines, particularly Brock Lesnar storylines. He was hands-on, I guess, with Ronda Rousey and I think Bill Goldberg and maybe a few others. Raj's dog is very upset right now that Paul Heyman
does not care that Raj has a podcast right now. Complete disregard for the business and inner workings of pro wrestling.
But as I was saying, so Paul's still going to be in the company. I wonder if he's still going to, Brock Lesnar obviously thinks very highly of him, trusts him a lot when it comes to the creative process. It would be surprising to see Paul's fingerprints completely removed from the WWE product.
Well, yes and no, but I'm sure he's not happy. No one's happy to be publicly demoted. I think that's difficult. Mm-hmm. I'm sure, if talent goes to Paul and asks for help, I'm sure if Ronda Rousey goes to Paul, I still think Ronda comes back once crowds are back, and I'm sure Paul will work closely with her. I don't think that changes, but yeah, I mean, and we've seen this before with Vince and Paul. It's odd you'd put a guy in a position like this when you know you're going to handcuff him. But it's Vince's show and it's Vince's rules.
Yeah, I'm curious what kind of contract Paul has as a talent with WWE. If it's an exclusive thing, if it's a per date deal. That'll be interesting to find out.
Raj, remember too, when Heyman signs this deal or becomes executive director, that's around the time of it's right after it's about a year ago, right?
Yeah, it was exactly a year ago. It was in June.
So slightly after, late June, slightly after Double or Nothing. So I know they were interested in having Paul at events or anything. Of course, you want Paul Heyman at an AEW event. You can't though because WWE re-upped. So to me, I don't know if it's buyer's remorse from Vince. I always think back to the Bret Hart deal. Like Vince got him in a deal where nobody else could get him. He decided he didn't want him anymore, and Bret. But it also reminds me of like Cain Velasquez. Like Cain was someone AEW certainly had interest in, and they made him so there is no interest in Kane. Not to say that's the case with Paul, but it's just kind of how Vince works. Vince wants what he wants. He takes that your leverage from you, right? So I don't think Paul can leave. Not that he would anyway, but so maybe they did, but maybe Vince did what he wanted to do.
Yeah, and we mentioned ratings. Ratings have been, down drastically from last year. Again, this is post-COVID. This past week it was down 20%, but last week was against the NBA playoffs. Last year, was against the NBA playoffs. Last week's was down almost 30% from last year. Week before, 21%. The week before, 30%. So big drops year to year. Again, this is post-COVID. Before COVID, though, the 3 weeks before COVID, they were down 23%, 19%, and 24%. So still big drops from the year prior. SmackDown obviously has been up year to year, but that's also because they're on Fox. They're in 30 million more homes. They are on a Friday night, so that takes a little bit out of it, but overall, it's still, number-wise, it's still up. They're still usually doing a little over 2 million viewers, except there was that 1 week where they dropped below, and last week. But yeah, it's
hard to say who. Like, to me, this isn't necessarily a case of Paul not having the answers, but rather this being a very difficult situation for everyone to work in, both pre-COVID-19 and in its current situation, because the ratings were down before the pandemic. It isn't solely related to the pandemic, but I don't know who WWE brings in to solve this that's going to be, better than Heyman. There's certainly plenty of options, but it seems more of an institutional problem than a Paul Heyman problem.
Yeah, it starts and ends with Vince. I think, though, he's more likely to be on the same page from what we've seen the past, 2.5, 3 decades with Bruce Pritchard than he ever would be with Paul Heyman. So I think that certainly plays a big piece in this.
Yeah. So we'll see. This is obviously breaking. Stay tuned in Justin's stuff at Sports Illustrated and his columns and his articles and WrestlingInc.com, of course.
So we're moving on to...
Tough way to start.
Yeah. Moving on to the real reason we're here tonight, which is for Saturday night's main event. This is the show. We're done with 1987. It's gone. We're moving on to 1988. This is the first show of 1988. It is from January 2nd, 1988.
Young Justin Barrasso's birthday.
Oh, how old are you, Justin?
I turned 5.
Oh, so you remember. Now, Raj, you've said
my mom's birthday, too.
Nice.
Raj,
right.
You've said that this was the first Saturday night's main event that you watched?
As it aired. There were a couple others I watched on tape before this point, but yeah, this was the first one I got to, at 10:30 at night was when it aired where I lived, and yeah, it was, we were at a party with a bunch of different families, so all the kids got to watch it, and it was awesome.
And this...
Lots of Bolsheviks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
This is a show. This reminds me a lot of the show we watched a few weeks ago with the build up to WrestleMania 3 between Andre and Hogan. And we're not building up to WrestleMania. We're building up to the main event, which was a primetime show in February of 1988 that is the most watched show in WWE history. It's the most watched show in American wrestling history if you just go by pure numbers of viewers at the time. It's probably arguably the biggest event this country's ever seen for pro wrestling. And so we're seeing a build kind of for that, and you want to see like a money angle, and you want to see something that got people invested in something to come back and watch a month later. That's what you see tonight.
Yeah, and it's kind of interesting because in the build to this, they had this at Saturday night's main event. Then they had a contract signing at the Royal Rumble. Andre kind of destroyed Hogan at both, and then in the actual match, he beats him. So, that's a formula you don't normally see by WWE. Usually, if Andre's, destroying him before the show, that means Hogan's getting his win. So, it was really interesting.
And I think, too, obviously Hogan, enormously popular, but it's tough when he's the favorite. It's tough when you're babyface champ, even when you're enormous like Hulk and jacked and ripped. And Hogan had a great look, too. But it's tough. You got to make the babyface vulnerable. You got to make him come from behind. And it's tough when you constantly win. So we start to see different ways to present Hogan. count out losses and different things like that. And now we're going to see him lose the belt. And we'll see the Macho Man, kind of the rise of the Macho Man as well. But yeah, just an interesting way to present Hogan too, because obviously Hogan's the long-term plan here, not DiBiase, certainly not Andre. But it's a great story, and they definitely hit it on all cylinders.
Yeah, and this year, I mean, it's starting off January 2nd. This was actually taped in December, but this year is, in my opinion, had some of the best storytelling that WWE had. This, Night 87 did as well with Hogan and Andre, but this with Hogan and the Macho Man, and like you said, the rise of the Macho Man, I think this was the best, because you saw the story progression on pretty much every show, starting with this one.
Well, we're basically a year into the Andre Hogan storyline at this point. It kind of started last winter before WrestleMania 3. Andre turns heel. They have the confrontation on Piper's Pit. All that kind of stuff happens. Obviously, WrestleMania 3 happens. After WrestleMania 3, Andre leaves and gets back surgery. He's gone for a while. He doesn't come back until we see him, Saturday Night's Main Event from October? He comes to the ring and he comes back, and that was kind of his big return. He was Bobby Heenan's big surprise, and that kind of reignites the Andre and Hogan storyline. Right now on this show, it's Hulk Hogan versus King Kong Bundy for the title with Andre in his corner. Obviously, Hogan retains the title, but it does kind of continue that feud. So we're a whole year into the Hogan versus Andre feud, and we still got a long way to go because, of course, we have the main event, we have WrestleMania 4, we have the SummerSlam main event. We have all of that still ahead of us. So it really was quite an extraordinarily long feud. And sometimes you think that WrestleMania 3 is kind of the pinnacle of it, but it's really that's only a few months into the actual feud.
Yeah, and that one lasted a lot longer than a lot of others. Like Hogan and Savage was squashed pretty quickly by that summer. So they kept this going. It was, they did their biggest, number a year into their feud that we'll get into. So,
so we're gonna get things going. So if everyone wants
to,
a
big what if, what if like Andre could have gone a little longer? Yeah. There was always the plan, right? He was supposed to be in the 90 Rumble. He got announced, but obviously didn't wrestle. Andre Earthquake makes a ton of sense. I asked Haku this once, if he was healthy, would they have done Andre Haku? He said no. But there were so many things you could have done with Andre had he had 5 more years, 3 more years, 6 more months.
Andre wanted to do a program with The Undertaker. I just read about it in his book that when The Undertaker was first starting out, Andre pulled him aside and said, one day, me and you. And that would have been a really interesting match.
He was way beyond shot at that point. But
physically he wasn't. He probably wasn't there. But like you said, Justin said, in an alternate universe, if he could have, kept wrestling and kept performing, that would have been a huge, definitely. So
that's one of the few pay-per-views they share together, right? WrestleMania 7, it's Taker and Snuka and what Andre's in. I think, is he in Boss Man's corner, or he comes out during the Boss Man Perfect match?
Yeah, he's in Boss Man's corner, and at the end, Boss Man raises his hand, he gets in the ring, and Andre gets like this monster pop, but then Andre raises Boss Man's hand with the idea being that he didn't want to come and outshine, Boss Man, because Boss Man was supposed to be the person getting the rub, which I don't think you'd see Hulk Hogan doing that, but that's neither here nor there. We're going to press play. I'm going to do a countdown. So like we do every week, everyone's going to press play and then immediately press pause. So people who have commercials on their version of the network don't get off the same time as us. So I'm going to do a countdown while I'll press play. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. And I'll press pause, and we'll give it about 15 seconds. But yeah, by this point, Andre still has enough left in the tank to perform. But by 1990, late 89, 90, it's very, it's really sad. His body just really wasn't able to go anymore, even to do pretty simple stuff. He couldn't take any bumps. He couldn't do a lot of lifting and that kind of stuff. And so unfortunately, the clock kind of ran out on him, but it definitely would have had a lot of exciting programs, if he were to stay healthy. So we're going to press play again. I'm going to do another countdown. We're going to do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and press play.
Jake the Snake. First WWF promo of 1988.
Yeah, I mean, right on the dot. This, like I said, this show's in Landover, Maryland. I could not find, for the life of me, the viewership and the ratings for this show. Everywhere I went, it just had question marks and a mystery. It's one of the shows. I don't know, Raj, if you could find it.
Yeah, I'll see. I'll see if I can find it.
But obviously, this would build up to the monster 30 million, 33 million people watching on the main event, which would happen in February.
Mm-hmm. Very grisly, underrated voice from Greg the Hammer Valentine. Didn't cut a whole lot of promos at that point, or moving forward, but just a great voice.
Right. And this is the first Saturday night's main event for the Bolsheviks, I believe.
Yeah, well...
Big smile from Nikolai.
So Nikolai Volkoff had been teaming with the Iron Sheik, as we saw in last year's Saturday night's main events. But the Sheik had been arrested in that incident that we've discussed, driving with Hacksaw Jim Duggan. The Sheik had cocaine on him. He got arrested. He gets fired from the company. And so what they ended up doing was bringing in Boris Zukov, who was an AWA wrestler, and kind of pairing him with Nikolai Volkoff, and that kind of started the Bolsheviks in WWF.
Yeah.
Hogan, again, clicking. We see this every week. Clicking on all cylinders. Got rid of that ridiculous bandana, too. He's back to the Hulkamania. I mean, he looks and sounds exactly like in 1988 or 87 or, 80s Hulk Hogan should.
I wonder how they got the feedback back then. Like, like that bandana looked ridiculous. You got to remove it. It's not like they had social media where you had instant.
I think it's the same way as it is now. Vince either liked it or didn't like it.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right, though. He didn't get it blown off. It wasn't like when Okada wore pants and everyone lost their minds that Okada was wearing pants.
Yeah.
But the strike, speaking of fashion, the Strike Force scarves, they don't last.
All right.
So
not at all. Bruce Bennett saying, Andre after Mania 7, yeah, that's right. He had signed with Herb Abrams for the UWF. And then Vince McMahon signed him back, and he got attacked by the Earthquake. Andre never actually worked with Earthquake. He was just in the corner. I think it was like Bushwhackers and Jim Duggan against the Twin Towers and someone. That's SummerSlam, and Andre was in their corner.
Well, yeah, and Andre basically signed that contract with Herb Abrams as a way to get back into the WWF because Vince at that time did not. Yeah, it totally worked. One of the things I'm reading I'll plug it again. Andre the Giant, the Eighth Wonder of the World by Pat Laparde. Great book if you're interested in reading about Andre the Giant. And one of the things you learn is that Andre was really shrewd. He was really smart, and he understood the business. And that's something that maybe he doesn't get enough credit for, or maybe people don't know that about Andre. But he really knew how to play the game.
Rush, I love that match. I actually thought as a kid the Bushwhackers were going to win. It was Bushwhackers Natural Disasters. And the best part of that match is it's an MSG. It's the Bret Hart Perfect Night. And the best part of that match is they decide to team up after the win. Of course they beat the Bushwhackers. And they're going to team up on Andre. And that's when LOD comes, wearing the shoulder pads. They come out to the ring. Pretty special moment.
Yeah.
No, I'm sorry. That was, that's the summer. No, I'm sorry. MSG, I'm throwing that off. SummerSlam is when they win the belts at MSG. Geez, that was...
the first
SummerSlam Arena?
No, it's Madison Square Garden.
The first SummerSlam was in Madison Square Garden, but the one you're talking about 1990, right?
Bushwhackers, Natural Disasters was that was SummerSlam. Yeah, so that was right. That was and they come out and they because the Warriors win the belts that night from the Nasty Boys. It's all the same night. Am I?
I think that's right.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that's right.
No, didn't Demolition? Oh no, that was the year before where they lost to the Hart Foundation. Was that 80?
I'm questioning myself when I shouldn't. It was that SummerSlam. Road Warriors came out early to support Andre, and they beat the Nasties.
It was 1991.
Knickerbocker Arena was the Rumble, the Flair Rumble.
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. Just anytime we have a question, just ask Bruce.
What is the Knickerbocker Arena?
That's also in New York. That's Albany, I believe.
Oh, so it's up at the Times Union Center now.
The Bolsheviks against Strike Force. Both of their Strike Force are the tag team champions at this point. They beat the Hart Foundation for it, right? They beat
the Hart Foundation in October, and they hold the titles until WrestleMania, where they lose them to Demolition, and then Demolition have the long record-setting reign after that. This is an amazing promo by Slick, by the way.
Slick was awesome.
This is a really smart promo.
Amy Elliott Vaughn saying, these 1988 shows are going to be brutal with some of the things that are said. Obviously, as a 12-year-old, these things went over my head, but rewatching, times are different.
Absolutely. Even just the xenophobia, right, of the evil foreigners versus the Americans. And
They still do
that.
They still do, right?
Vince is kind of stuck in a time warp. I always love it when, and it happens in this match, when someone not from America is the babyface beating up the foreign heels and the whole crowd chants USA.
USA.
Yeah. Well, Tito Santana was from America.
Yeah, he was from America, but Rick Martel will be in the ring and, beating up the Bolsheviks. Slick, just if you missed it, Slick just said that Mikhail Gorbachev, who famously came to the United States to visit Ronald Reagan, who's the president at the time, it was actually there really to see the Bolsheviks, to talk to them, give them a pep talk about how to do this match. And then they made a little time for Reagan, but it was mostly to talk to the Bolsheviks.
Lots of promo time there for Slick. One of the things that made him so special, I think, was the most ridiculous comments he made. It was sort of Bobby Heenan-like. You still kind of wondered. I mean, also it was a long time ago, but he made his ridiculous points seem somewhat realistic.
Right. There was a little, you could see him believing it. It wasn't so out there that he was playing a character.
Part of the heat is that, like, you want to roll your eyes and be like, oh, come on, Gorbachev didn't talk to you, shut up.
Yeah, not like that, but like with Elizabeth, when Elizabeth was in the corner of Hogan and Macho Man against the Twin Towers, and he was saying, like, it was that it's really 3 against 2, with Slick, and Elizabeth can't do anything physical, stuff like that, but, in a very heelish way.
Great manager. Great. Again, every week we see the same thing. The supporting cast, it's not just the guys in the ring, it's everybody around it. It's the Slicks, the Gene Okerlunds, the Jesse Venturas. They're just so deep right now.
Yeah. And it doesn't sound scripted, like when he's cutting this promo to the crowd. I don't know if this was, or this is kind of his standard shtick where he's having everyone stand up for the Russian national anthem.
Which is a great gimmick, by the way. It's something that a lot of people remember.
Yeah.
Slick.
I think it was in his obituary, Jesse. In Volkoff, I think in Volkoff's obituary was that he would sing the Russian national. I mean, it was so ingrained in that character. Yeah.
Is Volkoff dead?
Yeah.
Recently.
Yeah, because I remember him doing indie shows like not that long ago.
It's fairly recent.
Yeah, July 29th.
Here's the title win too in Syracuse.
Yeah, it was on, and it's kind of interesting how many of these title changes back in the day would happen on Superstars of Wrestling.
Mm-hmm. I'd like to know if that title change with the Martel finish, and they're the scarves here, sort of scarf-like. That's exactly what happens at WrestleMania, but they get hit with the cane by Fuji. I wonder if they wanted to plan that out that far ahead. That's how they drop the belts too.
Ooh, that would seem like, I mean, that's a lot of planning. But Vince back then, and that's one thing I feel like he doesn't do now. I don't think Vince is up late thinking of storyline ideas and ways he can take a certain story. Whereas back then, I'm sure he was probably really excited for a lot of these angles and just couldn't wait. And I just don't feel like he has that same passion for him now.
Raj, can we highlight the James Potts comment?
Yeah. Which one?
All of them? The Coliseum video.
Okay.
I remember this, and I want to say Kamala is in his like ring gear, which makes it even more. He's not like wearing a sweater and jeans. It's completely ridiculous.
Yeah, so James Potts saying, I used to have this old Coliseum video where Reverend Slick and Kamala, and he was trying to show Kamala how to bowl at the bowling alley. Yeah, there were ones where Kamala didn't know how to pin people, and Slick was trying to teach him how to pin, even though he had won so many matches by pinfall before that.
Right.
So Strikeforce, they had formed in August of '87, and they're basically the Can-Am connection. They just swap out Tito Santana for Tom Zenk. And they even come out to the same entrance music. They come out to Girls and Cars. So they're kind of are like just like a remodeled version of that. But for their time, they're pretty over, and they're well remembered today as a really popular tag team.
I think
who sings it?
Jimmy Hart.
No.
Oh no, Rick Derringer, right?
No, for two. Think back to the music video.
Don't they sing it?
No, it's not them. It's not Jimmy Hart. Oh, no. It's not Jimmy Hart. You're right. And it's not Rick.
Robbie Dupree.
Robbie Dupree.
Isn't it? Because in the is it the Pile Driver album?
Yeah.
They have like a really cheesy Girls in Cars music video, and I believe it's, somebody can correct me if I'm wrong, but I believe it's Robbie Dupree.
Yeah.
I think you're right.
With a good point here. One thing I never got in 1987, 1988, Demolition were never on Saturday Night's Main Event. That is true. Like, if there's a tag team you want to kind of showcase, and they clearly had big plans for them. And up until this point, we haven't seen them.
Yeah, it's kind of weird how the talent is distributed. One thing is that we have yet to, and he's not on this show, is we've yet to see Ted DiBiase, the $1 Million Man, who's going to play a massive role in the promotion at their next major show, at the main event. So it's interesting that we don't see any of those vignettes. He doesn't wrestle. He doesn't do anything. You wouldn't even know he's in the company if you were just watching the Saturday Night's Main Events. So it's kind of interesting to see who they put on these shows and who they don't.
A lot happened between here and the main event when you think about it, because here Andre was still managed by Bobby Heenan.
Yep.
Just a month later he's with Ted DiBiase. But yeah, that is true. They haven't shown Ted DiBiase yet.
Well, they had already done. I believe they had already done the angle where DiBiase tries to buy the title from Hogan. I think that happens in like December of '87. So he's been around and he's kind of been feuding with Hogan. Yet we don't see him at all in this show.
Right.
I also don't. Again, you mentioned putting Martel and Santana together. Two really solid guys, kind of old school. Put them in the same gear and let them go. And this is Martel's third and final tag team championship run, and I think it's Tito's second. Tito, of all people, like Ivan Putski and Rick Martel, and I think Martel's Tony Gurria. So it's two real guys stars from a different generation. You forget how long both these guys were around.
Yeah, and even though Rick Martel was AWA World Champion before this, I feel like replacing Tom Zank with Tito Santana gave the team more credibility. It made the team more just like a bigger name team.
Tito was a former Intercontinental Champion at that point. He wasn't a main event guy, but he was a respected veteran. It wasn't just these two young guys who had no credibility to fans. Tito establishes that.
He hadn't been, right? Yeah, and he hadn't been used as enhancement talent yet up until this point. He, like a couple years later, he was just losing every match. But
when he gets a good spot,
he had that credibility. And Tom Zank and Rick Martel, they almost looked too much alike to where it was hard to take them serious. Like, it was like the Young Stallions in a weird way, were just too pretty boyish to take seriously. And Tito added that veteran grit.
Yeah, I mean, Tito does have a good spot. Tito has a good run at Survivor Series 1990, where they do the Sole Survivor gimmick. And basically, the winners of each Survivor Series match would go on to the final match, which would be like the battle for Sole Survivors. And the idea is that the heels have like 8 guys, and the babyfaces have 3. And on the babyface side, it's Hogan, it's the Ultimate Warrior, and it's Tito Santana. So Santana
they needed someone who could take a pin. And it wasn't going to be Warrior, and it wasn't
right. Yeah, exactly.
Oh, yeah. At the end, it's Warrior and Hogan.
Yeah, exactly. They didn't
Warrior and Hogan are both sole survivors, which is an oxymoron. But I will say this match was better than I thought it was. Boris Sukov is actually a pretty good worker. I mean, he's not really brought up a lot, but you can tell in this match. I mean, Santana and Martel are really good too. But he does a lot of stuff in this match. This is a pretty hot, good opening match for this show.
And for WWF fans, like I didn't know Rick Martel outside of WWF. He could work really solid as a babyface. He could work as a heel later with the Model, who I think was a great underrated character. You don't hear much about anymore. Rick Martel, severely underrated. I think Tito gets the credit he deserves, but two pros.
Yeah, I mean Martel was a babyface for a long time, working in Montreal, and he's from Quebec City. And then he went to the AWA, and then he comes to the WWF. Like a lot of those guys ended up happening in the late 80s as the rest of the promotions kind of die off. And he has a good run, mainly as a heel, which is funny because he was a career babyface up until that point.
Wait, what happened? Is this 2 out of 3 falls?
Yes, it's 2 out of 3 falls.
Oh, so Martel with the first fall with the Boston Crab. They did a lot of 2 out of 3 falls tag team matches on
matches.
Saturday night's main event.
Yeah, maybe Vince had was in one of those moods where he said he can't have any wrestling during the ad breaks. So if you're going to have a longer match.
Yeah. Because, there's been a lot, because they also have the Demolition and the Brainbusters after this. That was a 2 out of 3 falls match where the titles changed. I'm thinking there was a couple others. We saw a couple already.
Yeah, we saw the Bulldogs and the Hearts.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Demolition, good point by Demolition. They're not highlighted on the show. Obviously, there's big plans for them. But that tag division, to me, it was almost like the Hearts were too popular. So if they wanted to not bury them, but if they wanted to put them on the side, they didn't last long because they were very popular. The Hearts go for a while without the belts now.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. I mean, the tag team division was just so loaded. Vince has never been particularly a big tag team guy to begin with. It was a tough terrain to succeed for a while. I mean, Demolition's huge. They haven't cracked the Saturday night's main event. Now you have 2 veterans in Martel and Tito in the division. Very competitive field.
Bruce bringing up that Martel injured his shoulder in a house show rematch with Demolition in May. And, yeah, he was out until January. I think it was a little after May, but I remember they actually showed that on Primetime Wrestling. So, yeah, Martel would be, on the shelf not too many months after this.
When it comes to WWE
Jerry,
tag team...
Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Read it.
Jerry 85G saying he has the exact same Macho Man shirt that I'm wearing.
I don't think
it's a classic.
Macho Man is not on this show.
I know. Yeah, this is the first one I think we watched that he's not on.
It's the first one he doesn't even have a match,
to
my knowledge. I think he's been wrestling on every single one of these so far. So,
and we were so heavy on Madness and Mania 2 episodes ago.
We're like, this is going to be the start of this big thing, and it hasn't been mentioned since.
Drew Greer III mentioning Rick Martel having a nice late run in WCW in the mid card. Yeah, I've always felt like they could have done more with him.
Because he's not that old at that point.
No, and he was just coming off the model. That was a pretty big hit. He had established a good heel
character. Even the end of that run, Raj, with Razor Ramon, like when Shawn, they took the belt off Shawn, and Martel was good.
Yeah, for the Intercontinental title, yeah.
Yeah.
So he was so effective as a heel, then they brought him in as a babyface in WCW, and really did nothing with him. So I wasn't a big fan.
10 years later, he wins every belt. I mean, just a guy that again was really talented, but it was just so competitive in WWE. Even late '90s, he's covered in gold.
Bruce mentioning the shape that Martel is in. He looks completely different from his AWA run.
Yeah.
I mean,
if you look at locker room.
Yeah, you look at the pictures of Martel in the AWA, and you would almost think it's a different guy.
Still flying around, still working that style. The drop kicks are pristine. Yeah, he gets in the air.
Yeah.
Justin, to your point, kind of talking about tag teams in WWF, I thought FTR made a really interesting point on the Jericho podcast when they were on about a month ago. They kind of talked about that. If you're in WWE...
Hold on real quick. Tito just pinned Boris Zukov, so they won 2 straight falls. So
great book.
Yeah, I love that.
His cane was thrown in, hit Zukov with the cane.
I hate champions losing a fall. I always liked it best when champions stay unbeatable until it's time to lose. Until you have to.
Especially if they don't need to. Like, they didn't need to drop one of the Bolsheviks. I mean, what's the point? I completely agree.
Yeah.
But what I was saying about tag teams, the FTR, they said, in WWE, if you are much more likely to get a push if you're 2 singles guys thrown into a tag team than you are if you're like an actual tag team. That's like super true, and I never really thought of it that way. But that's kind of how WWE looks at its tag team division, as a way for people who aren't really doing anything else to do something, and you can get more guys involved, as opposed to kind of building up long-term established teams. Although, I mean, there's the New Day and Usos and some of that, but this is a great
I shouldn't
segment,
do this, but I don't know when I'm going to have another chance to do it. All you girls, you've gone a bit too far. I'm not safe behind the wheel of my car.
You didn't talk to me.
Serious effect on me. Yeah.
You're going to need the karaoke.
Great song.
It is.
The next time I ask to sing Girls in Cars at karaoke, I'm going to get booed out of there. But I don't think they have it on the karaoke.
I don't think you can find it, yeah.
Yeah, I think no one's going to know what you're singing.
Yeah. Sika here with Mr. Fuji and a giant hoagie. No chicken this time.
Well, he has the hoagie because he's facing Jake Roberts, and he says he's going to eat the snake, so he needs the bread to put the snake in.
Sika, of course, Roman Reigns' memory.
Memory.
Jesus. Sorry, Joe and Greer at the same time and wrote great memories.
That spoonful of mustard is disgusting.
That's so gross.
Yeah.
I was wondering, do you think that's real mustard?
So yeah, Sika is Roman Reigns' father, is what I meant.
I mean, he was eating a raw chicken last time we saw him, so.
Yeah, I'm sure mustard is I'd much rather eat mustard.
I would, but man,
It just doesn't feel whole. One half
so
of the
spicy.
Samoans doesn't feel whole without the other. You need them both.
Yeah.
well, Sika retires this year in 1988, so this is I think this might be his last appearance in Saturday Night's Main Event.
Sika
Has a good
he had
finish, though.
Yeah, some high-profile matches, on these.
Hogan and Jake. I mean,
Hogan and
huge.
Jake, yeah.
And they're really behind Jake at this point.
Yeah.
This is
You
again,
can-
you
you
Sika,
can
Danny
claim that Jake
Davis
is the-
getting those paydays in late 87,
Yeah.
88. They sure did.
and Gene Okerlund does such a good job in all of his interviews with Jake, selling the idea that he's afraid of the snake, and Jake's holding up the snake's face right to him. So
And Jake's
Probably,
promos.
knowing Jake, he probably was.
Yeah.
I'm sure Gene didn't want to be anywhere near either one of them.
Yeah. Jake's promos, man, never yelling.
so
Just
good.
So good. Just you could learn from him today. That's one thing I think is always missing is the story and character and promos that are just, so great. Yes, you have some people that could do it now.
Yeah.
But but not that many.
On the flip side,
Hogan
Raj,
worked really well his style, but Jake's
Yeah.
was so different. Savage, Jake was so different than anybody else on the top of the card.
Yeah, exactly.
I feel like guys don't yell enough now in promos.
No,
I
for
think a
sure.
lot of the guys talk stuff like I remember. Did you guys see the Tully Blanchard promo where he kind of rips into Sean Spears and he just basically yells the entire time? It's totally great, and I think a big part of that is that you rarely see that kind of intensity in a promo these days.
Yeah, if everyone's doing it, then it gets drowned out. But
Yeah.
here, like you said, Hogan, when he's doing it, it's so different than, his style, than Savage, than Roberts, than so
Even
many
Flair.
of these guys.
Flair yelled a lot, but very different style.
Yeah. Then
If
DiBiase. DiBiase kind of, he wasn't, he talked loud, but he wasn't really yelling.
Yeah, there's a you can have energy without like yelling.
Yeah. Piper was usually yelling, but still, it was way different. It was such different styles.
So I see the comment from Bruce about Jake DDTing Hulk.
Yeah, in late 1986.
The crowd liked it, and this might be an unpopular take on it, but what a great move to never revisit that again. Now you could have, but Taker was on that Survivor Series '91. But like Hogan's the golden goose, and I don't think anybody else, whether you like Hulk or dislike Hulk, I don't think anybody else can do what he did for that stretch. I love Jake, and I think it's a great character, but I think they made the right move by keeping those two away. Hogan was the guy. There was nobody else, to me at least, that could have been the guy in wrestling. Not Dusty, not I don't know. I don't think anybody could have carried them quite like Hulk from WrestleMania 1 through 7.
So for the people listening on the podcast, Bruce had said, can you imagine late 1986, Jake the Snake had DDT'd Hulk Hogan, and they were going to do a 4-month run on the house shows. But the fans cheered Jake that night, and mentioning it probably cost Jake $200,000, might be even more.
More than that, yeah.
But it's funny you say that, Justin, because I agree 100%. I kind of said the same thing. You don't want your fans turning on your top baby face when they're not done yet. So why put them in a situation where they could get booed when you can put them against anyone else? You make the same amount of money, and you keep that fan reaction.
And Jake wasn't as great as Jake was. He's just to this day, Jake's just so dark, right?
Yeah.
I mean, even if he's likable, and he got Jake was huge.
Yeah.
He still wasn't like the pure baby face. Like Hulk is just so different, and so unique, and
And in '86, there wasn't a shortage of heels that Hogan could work with and draw money, so they weren't beholden to having to put him with Jake because they didn't have anyone else.
And it's not like he was getting booed elsewhere, and
No.
or it's just you don't want it to turn into the cool thing to cheer the guy facing Hulk.
definitely.
Well, we've seen that happen recently.
Well, you saw. I remember when Sid Vicious threw out Hogan in that Royal Rumble, and the pop was just insane. And granted, they edited that later, but
Even
wrestling.
Shawn Michaels Survivor Series with Sid. Speaking of Sid, that crowd is
going crazy.
150. They're entirely behind Sid. Yeah,
Who had
And
just
I
cheated
like
to
the-
win? Yeah,
Yeah, the video camera.
yeah.
Wrestling
And you
fans,
take out his old manager as well. Like
Wrestling
And the
fans-
crowd love that too.
yeah.
wrestling fans always, to me, like, they're going to respond to something new and exciting happening, even if that person is supposed to be the heel or the babyface. That's why right now, whenever someone turns, they get cheered, even if they turned heel, because fans like change, they like action, they like seeing someone take initiative, and I think that's always going to be the case.
Jake and Sika, this match is actually pretty good. Yeah, it's
High
not
speed.
something you would consider being a good match. Fuji catching Jake's foot with his cane. Sika, just reminding me so much of Umaga here. And Jake picking up the pinfall after Sika missed a charge in the corner.
So it's interesting, he doesn't hit him with the DDT.
Which you rarely see later with Jake. It's always DDT finishes. Interesting, Sika barefoot here. To hear Booker T's comments about Matt Riddle being barefoot. The last big star in WWE I can remember being barefoot, and post-injury he came back wearing boots. I can't think of anyone recently bigger than Rusev.
Yeah, Rusev. And I'm trying to think. There's Umaga.
Yeah, I'm trying to think.
Didn't, but that was a long time ago.
Fuji with some interesting selling.
Fuji convulsing is amazing. Fuji was so good.
John P. Demizio saying the scripted, overproduced way of doing things is not working and it's not organic. There's no spontaneity. Bruce will be relieved of his job if ratings drop on either network or not happy. I agree with the not organic.
Can I focus on one word in that comment? He said no spontaneity. I couldn't agree more. When's the last time you were watching Raw and you felt it was electric or spontaneous? It just doesn't feel that way. And I'm sorry, I won't put that on Paul Heyman. I mean, he's got a boss. He's got somebody that he has to defer to. It would have been interesting had they let the show loose under Paul's realm, but obviously it didn't happen. I like the use of the snake. I'm jumping around. I like the use of the snake in this match too.
Yeah.
Raw is definitely spontaneous. I don't know if there's plenty of times it's spontaneous. I don't know. A lot of times it's not for the better.
I don't know, Jess.
I'm talking about spontaneous in an exciting way.
Yeah, I'm sure. I'm just saying random
yeah.
stuff happens in WWE all the time. It's just usually not very good.
Oh,
And I know we were younger, but watching the old, like, even if you watch an old Nitro, those shows were exciting. They were, you knew they were starting hot. Obviously wrestling's, it's hurting. Even though AEW does a better job, it's hurting with no crowd. There's like Raw, 3-hour Raw is missing a lot of energy.
Yeah. And, and when people say it's the times are different. I don't know if you remember the Shield and the Wyatt family when they finally wrestled and the fans were going nuts and they were on the standing up as the match started before they even touched. Yeah. You can still
Shield
do it if
Rhodes,
you book
too.
them. What's that?
Yeah, the Rhodes brothers.
Yeah, you can still get
Shield,
that response if you build things up right. Look at Andre here. So King Kong Bundy, Andre, and Bobby Heenan.
So Bundy did beat Hogan via countout on the last episode of Saturday Night's Main Event, which sets up this match. But really, this is about Andre and Hogan, even though Bundy is contending for the title.
Andre, a very animated Andre the Giant in that promo there. And he looks like $2 million in that suit jacket. Yeah. I wanted to pull out a suit jacket tonight and wear it, but I don't have anything on my elbows, and I don't have anything. I couldn't do it justice.
Yeah. So they're replaying Hogan thrashing Bobby Heenan at the last Saturday Night's Main Event. Yeah, King Kong Bundy with the rare victory up at this point on Saturday Night's Main Event over Hogan. Hogan, I can't remember him losing on Saturday Night's Main Event before this. He would go on after, but so it was a pretty big deal at the time. That's why, like, all the kids, when I watched this, everyone was glued. I wasn't as big a wrestling fan yet. I was starting to get into it, but this was the night that turned me into a mega fan. Like, I just became obsessed.
Great strut by Bundy. Also, critical use of managers so far. Also different, too. The Slickster, Fuji, Heenan, all very, very different, but each play a critical role in their match.
Yeah, Justin, someone asked me the other day, talking about AEW, and like, do you think someone asked me, there's too many heel managers in AEW, there's too many bad guys being managed by heels, and I said, well, not exactly the same. We've been watching these Saturday Night's Main Events, and I don't think once have we said, hey, that guy would be better if he did, that heel would be better if he didn't have the manager. It's always a bonus.
Yeah. There have been times, we haven't seen it yet, but there are times when someone's mismatched.
Sure.
But like Mr. Fuji and Jeff Jarrett, when that was a thing for like a week or two. Hogan looked like he took a shower in baby oil.
Yeah. I was going to say, what do you think the WWF's baby oil budget was for 1988?
Jesus.
Limitless.
Yeah.
The GDP of a small country.
Yeah.
The only issue I have with Jake pairing with Lance Archer is, I guess, I mean, I don't think Lance needs a voice, but I know Jake's so recognizable, Jake the Snake, right? He's on wrestling. But at the same point, too, I wonder if you can't put Jake with a lot of guys. Jake's just too big. Like so if Jake's with a guy who's half his size, do you hurt his credibility? So I understand why maybe Archer's the right fit in that sense.
Yeah. Bruce Bennett pointing out that Hogan was pinned 4 times from 84 to 93. Think about that stretch, 9 years. And so how big of a deal it was when Hogan did get pinned. Andre, Warrior, Taker, and Yokozuna. There were some house show matches where Hogan got pinned by Ric Flair, and then Ric Flair used brass knucks, so the referee would then, another referee would come, they restart the match, and Hogan got the win. But as far as getting pinned and losing, that's absolutely right. Yeah, only 4.
That's how you did it back then. I mean, part of the reason Hogan is so over and he's the immortal Hulk Hogan is because he didn't lose.
Now look how much drier Hogan is now.
Yeah. But there's no 50-50 booking. There's no like, I'm going to put this guy over. So like Hogan is the guy because he wins so much, and that's what helps create, obviously he's got charisma. He's a good talker, obviously amazing look, but he has that mystique and that aura because he always won. And
when people would say like Roman Reigns, oh, he wins again, or any other top guy, Brock wins again. That's what you do with your top guys. You protect them, so when they do lose, it's a big deal. They shouldn't be.
And it hurts the current guys. Like Hogan played in a perfect era for his character. Mm-hmm. Maybe Roman's huge back then too, but if Hogan had to work Raw every Monday and the show ended every Monday, and there was, it's oversaturation.
Yeah.
Now,
even when Austin was wrestling, he would be on every Monday, but he didn't wrestle that often. Yeah. You still keep those matches to, once a month or a couple times a month.
You wanted to sell pay-per-views, so you didn't. If Austin was wrestling every week, why pay for him to, on the pay-per-view?
Yeah.
And Austin was really at his best when he wasn't wrestling, because what made him such a star was his promos and his crazy segments and him stunning Vince, and it wasn't necessarily him having to wrestle actual matches.
Yeah.
And they have a very different philosophy with the title run, which I wonder if AEW does with Mox. I know Moxley was wearing the Stone Cold shirt last week, but in terms of, I don't think Brian Cage wins the belt, but Austin was always chasing. Hogan was the guy. So very different philosophy in terms of Vince. Like when you were Hogan, you were the champ. When you had Austin, I think the first 3 of Austin's title runs were like 90 days, somewhere around there. The money was in the chase for Stone Cold.
He had a short one with Kane, but then he won it the next night, like at that last blood match, first blood match. I mean,
but yeah,
that first year he was mostly on top. But yes, after that he was chasing a lot. And you know what? I think if Hogan lost to Savage, like a disputed finish at WrestleMania 5, that would have been fire. Hogan chasing Savage for a year. It could have been like an Hogan Andre thing,
It just seemed like they had that formula, Raj, and they wouldn't go from it. Yeah. I know they did at WrestleMania 4, but even they didn't, because WrestleMania 4 still ends with Hulk posing, right? Like Hulk closes the show, Hulk wins.
Yeah. So Amy is asking, who is this referee? I've seen him a lot in this area, but I don't know his name. Is that Dave Hebner? Let me see. Oh no,
no, it's not Dave Hebner. It's not Joey Marella.
I don't know that ref. I have seen him on other shows, and I don't think they ever say his name. Yeah.
Yeah, I guess they probably do. We're just not paying attention. It's Dean Malenko. Dean Malenko does referee from Saturday Night's main events when they were in Tampa, but it's not him now.
James Foss bringing up that the Dayton 5-hour-long TV taping that he went to at the Hara Arena, they closed the show with a dark match where Hogan Flair cheats, the match was restarted. I remember just seeing Hogan get pinned even in a house show match, even though it was restarted. It was just jarring in that era.
Yeah, I mean, if I'm booking a promotion now, I would say like if I have my top babyface, I'd only have him lose like 3 times a year max, all things considered. They can lose to another.
I think what AEW is doing with Moxley is exactly the right way to do it. He hasn't been pinned yet.
Yeah, and it's not just AEW. Like I think of how New Japan books Okada. Like Okada only loses like to top guys very rarely, or he'll lose to like someone like Sonata, and then it really helps that guy. But other than that, he always wins, and that means that when he does actually lose, it's a really, really big deal. And I think that's something that WWE could learn from. And I feel like they are doing that with Drew to an extent.
Yeah.
I don't think Drew's going to be losing a lot.
Drew hasn't lost yet. He hasn't been pinned yet this year.
He hasn't
to your
really...
point, with Justin, you brought up Brian Cage. I think just beating Brian Cage off the bat, I think that, with Lance Archer and Brody Lee, it hurt some of their momentum. By being beaten right off the bat. And Cage is another monster. And to beat him right off the bat, if that is indeed the plan, just seems like a mistake to me. Unless they are beating Moxley, and Moxley's going to Japan, since Japan is running shows again in July.
I don't think the foreigners can get into Japan right now. I don't know, maybe that will change at some point. But
they made
some. And I think if you put the belt on a heel, it's MJF, but Cage would be a unique guy. I mean, that's how you build a style. If Brian Cage wins that belt on TV, it would be interesting. It would make him.
It'd be put a rocket strap on him. They could use some top heels right now, because, like I said, some of them are watered down. You just got Jericho in a lot of ways.
If you did a Clubber Lang Rocky story where Cage just wrecks him, I think it only. I mean, it doesn't hurt. It's not like Mox is no less of a star,
right? Yeah. And then doing that comeback where he, I think it could be great. Yeah. And then you could during that time set up Cody versus Cage, and I guess Cody can't
wrestle for the title. I've really enjoyed Taz, like just his promos, just the few promos. I like the one last night where Mox is kind of like talking smack about him in the parking lot, and Taz just comes out and interrupts him, gets right in his face. I think Taz can cut those really nice, intense promos, and unfortunately he's been kind of misused for, the last 20 years. So I'm glad to see him kind of in that role again, because he's really good at it.
Bruce saying that Hogan and Sarah was going on before intermission because the Savage matches and the tag matches like Hearts, Demolition Busters, he couldn't follow. That wasn't the reason. It was usually to get out of the arena early. And they would do like, on weekend shows, they would do like Hogan would work like the opening match or a match in the first half of the show in one venue, and then he would fly to like another city that's like an hour flight away and then work the main event. And they would be able to advertise Hogan on 2 shows and get 2 houses out of him on the weekends. So the
Hogan Slam Bundy, which is nice.
Yeah.
So this is Bundy's last televised match in the WWF for 6 years.
Yeah.
So he leaves after this. Apparently, according to this half-assed internet research corner, Bundy felt like he was being underpaid by Vince at this time, and then he goes and does a advertisement for a Dutch computer company, which Vince didn't like because it went behind Vince's back and Vince wasn't involved in it, and that caused a big riff. Bundy says that he wasn't treated the same by Vince after that, and so he leaves and he doesn't come back until 1994.
If Bundy stays, we'll play the what if game. What if? He probably gets a run with Macho. He just is fodder for the Macho Man, right? Like in that title reign. Maybe he's in the tournament. I mean, the tournament, it's not designed for him at 4. And maybe he headlines, best case, he headlines a pay-per-view with Randy. But
probably not a pay-per-view, probably a Saturday night's main event.
Yeah.
But because he would have probably, I could easily see him in that one-man gang spot where they have a disputed, where Macho beats him in the tournament by count out, and then they wrestle on the next Saturday night's main event. But Bundy's, star had kind of faded here.
And if you look at that trajectory, then what's next? Then he's in a tag team. I don't see Bundy as, even though Bundy and Stud would have been fun had they stuck together longer and had a tag team title run. Who's Bundy going to tag with? But Gang was with Boss Man. Earthquake, who had a really fun singles run, got cast away, but he made the most of it with the disasters. So I don't know where you go next with Bundy if he stays.
Yeah.
I'll say this about Bundy, having watched these shows. I think Bundy is the person that I think I've been the most exceeded my expectations the most. I think he's pretty underrated as a worker. He's had pretty good matches with Hogan. He does a great job selling comebacks. He does a really good job in pretty much everything he's done. He's been very impressive for me. It's a little unfortunate that he would leave the company because he's still, I think, like under 30 years old at this point. He's really young, and he really wouldn't. He kind of goes into retirement. He doesn't really come back, in wrestling until 1994.
And you could have paired him with some of the guys that were, upper mid card, like the Jake the Snakes and the Hacksaw Jim Duggans, and
you could put him in a tag team with
like
a smaller guy and kind of do like a big guy, small guy hiding behind the big guy.
Yeah, so I'm not sure why he left. Maybe I'm guessing there must have been a reason. Maybe he was burnt out or something. I remember he was starting to get a lot of movie roles at that point, and he was appearing on Married with Children, in the Richard Pryor movie.
I'll go back and look too. With the referee that gets hurt there, obviously Hebner replaces him, but I'll look to maybe Ventura drops his name in that. I didn't hear it. I wasn't looking for it when I watched earlier, and I couldn't hear it there. But maybe we find out who that is. I'm curious now too.
Yeah. James Platt saying, I think once Bundy lost to Hogan, his stock dropped. He wasn't as believable as a big monster, and I feel like regardless of outside things, he would never grow to that level again. Probably not. He probably wouldn't have grown to that. Even WrestleMania 2, that was kind of a stretch. It just felt like they rushed. They needed an opponent for Hogan. It was Bundy or Savage, and I felt like Vince probably thought Bundy was more menacing.
With the exception of Andre, every monster wasn't the same following the Hogan feud. Andre was Andre. Different guy, different player, just a legend. But everybody else, it was hard to come back.
Yeah, Bossman did have a good run with Hogan, but I remember they did huge house shows. But yeah, it just wasn't the same. You're right.
But the Bossman body. Speaking of body changes, we talked about Rick Martel earlier. The Bossman, like the Twin Tower Slick era, is totally different than the Bossman of the WrestleMania 7 Mr. Perfect match. Very different than the Authority boss man. He changed his look quite a bit too. Size as well.
So again, with this, we didn't have a match go through the commercial break. It was stopped because the referee got splashed. They cut them a commercial and they came back and now the match resumes. So maybe they did have that mentality during this time that a match doesn't go through a commercial break.
Yeah, I think we've seen WWF at this time really likes doing a lot of stuff. They like doing referees getting knocked down. They like doing restarts of matches. They like doing those things, and maybe that's just a convenient time to go to ad break, or if it was a conscious choice to be like, we don't want to have anyone wrestling during the ad breaks.
Dick Ebersol was a huge part of this. I wouldn't be surprised if that was his call. He's like, you don't have matches during the commercial. You don't have action during the commercial break.
Yeah. Great story too here that Hebner comes in as the new referee.
Yeah.
Because Hebner's about to become, a key piece of this Hogan Andre story. So nice that they kind of and they don't force him in the story. He had to come in because the guy was hurt. Again, the attention to detail here is infuriating when you compare it to the current product, but outstanding as well.
Yeah. I wonder if that's Dave or Earl, because Earl didn't come in yet, right? He just came in for that angle. Okay.
Earl makes his appearance in the angle. They were, I think they both started refereeing for JCP at the time, and then Dave went to the WWF first, and then I just read about the story. It's like Dave asked, "Hey Vince, can you hire my brother? He's looking to come up here, and he wants to leave JCP." And he's like, "Yeah, he's my twin brother." And then Vince was like, "Oh, your twin brother?" And he's like, "Yeah, like identical twins? Yeah, we look exactly alike." And Vince was like super excited because he thought of that angle or how they could use it for a storyline purpose.
So Bundy going wants the 5 count.
Love that he doesn't want to. Yeah, he wants the 5 count. Yeah.
But Hogan still kicked out at 2. Obviously, he's not going to kick out at 4. Big E used the Bundy 5 count years later in NXT. I just thought it was a cool gimmick. So now Hogan's hulking up, and now we know what's coming.
Jesse, you're right too. Spry, versatile for a big guy.
Yeah, his moves are
heavy.
I think match has been good. For 2 big guys, are very entertaining.
I thought the WrestleMania 2 match was good too.
Yeah, Hogan got the win, got the leg, got the victory. Now the real stuff starts here.
A very different Bundy than we saw at WrestleMania 11 against Taker.
Oh yeah, I think maybe the time off just hurt him. maybe just because Taker's style then too. Taker was never really good with big guys. The only big guy I could think that he worked well with was Diesel.
Oh, I liked it with Yoko.
Yeah, Yoko too. Yeah,
That's true. Guy.
Yeah.
Erica Kane.
I guess so big tall guys.
Yeah, Kane or Brock if you count Brock as a big guy.
Yeah, him and Brock had some great ones. Their WrestleMania match, even though it wasn't great as far as the match itself, the ending was so iconic that it's got to be considered one of the greatest matches.
It's funny. I actually have never rewatched that match, but I remember at the time on my review, I think I gave it like 3.5 stars and said like I thought it was an amazing, like a really awesome match. And everyone says it sucks, and Undertaker was concussed like 5 seconds into it and doesn't remember anything about what was happening. So
yeah. So Andre was about to leave. Hogan started posing. Andre comes in from behind and just starts choking the crap out of him.
An awesome visual.
Incredible.
Yeah, Andre's face, Hogan.
Well, this is...
And you just keep thinking that Hogan's going to power out, and then Andre keeps taking him down.
And this is what, like, Andre, physically, he's not the same guy at this point, but he never lost the ability with facials, with timing, with the ability to kind of sell what he's doing. And that's all that's really required of him in this storyline. It really works.
And the Bulldogs come in, they start hammering away, and then Andre just dumps him out like a piece of trash. Andre lets go. He barely sells it. Knocks their heads together, and then
some
just
classic Andre offense.
Yeah.
2 sacks of garbage to the floor, McMahon.
And him choking Hogan. I remember watching this with my friends, and we were like, we just cannot believe what was happening.
I don't understand, and obviously you don't have to do it a carbon copy of it, but you have the Big Show McIntyre feud. You need to sell. You get Big Show because you want to sell his new Netflix show or highlight it, right? Cross promote. To me, this is an easy way to do McIntyre Big Show. Yeah. Have him choke him out on that Raw after Mania, and get 2 or 3 weeks out of it. You're not getting 2 or 3 months.
Right.
But I'm just amazed it was over before it was over in 15 minutes.
Yeah. So now we got Strikeforce, Jake the Snake, JYD out. Andre still lets go for a second, puts it back on, and then Hacksaw comes in with the 2x4.
Watch what happens to the 2x4 when Hacksaw goes.
Hacksaw keeps hitting him.
But watch what happens to the 2x4 when Hacksaw swings it outside the ring.
Oh.
He breaks it in half, and the other half, like a shard, goes flying into the stands. Definitely wasn't supposed to happen, and someone could have really gotten hurt.
Yeah, Bruce with a good point here. Andre owned Hogan on Saturday night's main event. The Battle Royal, where he eliminated Hogan here, where Andre Hogan's carried out. Andre's posing with the belt. Hogan looks just dead. Bruce bringing up the main event. You had to pay to see Hogan get at Andre because smart booking. Absolutely. You get the big audiences watching to get them invested to see, if Hogan can.
Those big hands, the perspiration, the belt around his waist, holding it in the air. I mean, just everything about Andre was money.
He makes the belt look like a toy when he's holding it. You're like, oh, the title belt's like this big, like gaudy belt, and it looks like just like an ornament.
I mean, that was some angle. Joe Greer saying Andre had to get some heat. He did. Sure did.
And that is basically sets up from a viewership standpoint, the most successful angle in WWF American Wrestling history.
Yeah, that we'll be covering next week. The biggest wrestling show ever, really, as far as popularity goes.
In the U.S. Sorry. So Jesse is doing the interview because, again, he wants to ask the right questions, and Oakland wouldn't ask the right questions. So now Jesse's in charge, interviewing the heels.
Jesse was so great. I don't know how he came up with some of these outfits.
He's really good on this episode in particular.
Like, I need to finish this gray tank top and whatever those Zubas were called. Well, actually, it's like snakeskin pants. And he's like, I need to finish it off with a pink scarf and green tiger bandana.
Does he have boots on or shoes? You wonder how that ensemble is completed. Absolutely.
Very curious.
All right. It's a trivia question time. this isn't a real thinker. How old do you think Greg Valentine is right now in this video?
47. I'm kidding.
Probably in his 20s.
I'd say early 30s.
I'm gonna say
I'll say 33.
I'm gonna say 28.
He's 37.
Oh, all right. Him and like Arn Anderson. They've kind of looked the same for such a long period of time.
Yeah, it's like kind of like a Morgan Freeman thing. Is you start off looking really old, so then when you get older, you just kind of look. It looks like you didn't age at all.
It's like Steve Martin.
Coco, I bet's in his 20s. No,
he must be here. Yeah.
Yeah.
Steve Martin has looked the same my whole life. He's always looked old, like gray hair.
Yeah.
You know.
See how old
Gene
Coco is.
Okerlund till the end. Gene looked. I mean, Gene went through a stretch where like the end of WWF, he worked at King of the Ring. He goes to WCW. He doesn't change that much.
Yeah, I like how he never tried to grow a goatee or doing anything. He just kept it classic.
Yeah.
So Coco's 30 in this.
Yeah, young.
Yeah.
Young by.
I agree with Bruce here. Hogan, Andre, then the Mega Powers. Those 2 years of storytelling still may be the best ever. I agree.
I mean, if you just go by money, I mean, those are the two driving angles that took WWF to new heights.
Yeah.
Look, I mean, look at the attendance, look at the pay-per-view. One of the interesting things about WrestleMania 4 is that they do that record number at WrestleMania 3, massive, massive crowd, and then they don't go back to a stadium until WrestleMania 6, when you would have to think that they would have been able to draw a massive crowd.
Well, they could have. That's because they got paid a ton of money by Trump to hold it at Trump Plaza the next 2 years. Because that was the worst setting ever for WrestleMania, in my opinion, was Trump Plaza. It was dead. It was all casino people that didn't even watch wrestling. They only reacted to Hogan. It
was like the Saudi Arabia crowd.
Saudi Arabia crowd's probably better.
I'm thinking like the front row of the Saudi Arabia crowd, where it's the guys are walking around like backs turned.
Yeah, because at least the rest of the crowd made noise. This,
it's quality work by Frankie. Being able to balance on the rope, and I think Frankie is the MVP of this match.
Mm-hmm.
Doesn't seem bothered by the crowd either.
I was thinking about
Trump. They're doing the Republican. It's not official that the Republican National Convention will be in Jacksonville, Florida. So, or a host
Daly's place. They said, Raj.
What's that?
At Daly's.
They're doing it at Daly's.
No, I'm kidding. I'm kidding.
I was like, what?
Oh God!
You got me there for a second. So when you're talking about wrestling going back to arenas, it's probably happening sooner than later. So
I'll be surprised if I got to work on this story, but I'll be surprised if SummerSlam is not held in front of a live crowd.
Me too. Especially if New Japan's going to be held, in front of fans here in July, and that's still another month.
Right.
Yeah, I mean it depends on the case rates. I was just looking for
Florida is jumping up right now.
Yeah, there's a big spike in cases. So
Georgia's leveled off. They plateaued.
Yeah.
So
I don't know how stubborn individuals everyone's going to be about it, but I mean that would be the main thing to determine whether or not you're going to see fans. Is if the rates remain flat, probably see fans soon. If they spike back up,
I could see with that governor. I could see him allowing.
Yeah, I mean
it's
going to vary state to state. I'm pretty sure SummerSlam's not going to be in Boston in August.
Yeah. So Greg Valentine versus Coco Beware. Coco, I was a fan of Coco when I was a kid, just because he did so much cool stuff that you never really got to see with the main guys. But on Superstars, with the smaller guys that he'd wrestle, the Brainbuster was his finishing move, which was so cool. He'd do the flying dropkick off the top, which you didn't see many people do back then.
Yeah, and he's one of those people whose name and with his gimmick and stuff, he's remembered very fondly today.
Yeah. Valentine, one of those rare guys, one of those rare heels, who when he went to the top rope would actually hit his double axe handle. Right. He wouldn't be like Flair be thrown off or have his tights pulled. He was up and down quick, but he'd actually deliver or execute.
Mm-hmm. Amy bringing up that Jesse calls Coco buckwheat throughout the match. I think he did that all the time. The stuff Jesse would say back then, it would not fly today. But
the stuff Jesse would say back then.
What's that?
A lot of Heenan's comments.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Any heel commentator, Jim Cornette back then. I mean,
right.
He's let a couple slip out here and there. Jerry Lawler, he'll let some of those slip out, but.
So Valentine is in the midst of a little push here. He he's working here obviously against Coco. He beats Ricky Steamboat at WrestleMania 4 in the first round of the tournament before losing to Savage. So he's coming out of and then he goes into a really long feud with Ronnie Garvin.
Yeah. I believe he pretty much won that feud too.
Yeah, it's
Jose Sorella saying CM Punk reminds me of Macho Man and Cena reminds me of Hogan.
Good parallel.
Yeah, I could kind of see that in a lot of ways.
I
Not
don't know,
the same level of star power.
Yeah.
Cena, yeah.
Very different presentations at the top of the card. One was kind of literally in Cena's case, the prototype. I mean, they're not carbon copies, but I think that's a great point.
Yeah, the smaller guy against the Hulk guy, and just having great chemistry, and their storylines were just always a hit. And Brutus the Barber comes down, distracts Greg Valentine. Coco gets a bunch of near falls.
More of a mullet than usual out of Beefcake tonight.
Yeah.
And the crowd really buys Coco's near falls. They're really into it.
Yeah. And so now we got the stop in the action. Valentine composes himself. Yeah, that's a total. It's almost like Nash when he came in as Diesel. It was Beefcake's mullet there.
Yeah, that is. Yeah.
And now Beefcake's getting sent to the back. Here we got the pause in the match. Yeah, that's definitely the formula. No action. You don't go during a match or while they're wrestling.
Did Beefcake ever cut anybody with the hedge clippers? Did he ever actually cut someone, or is he just cut hair?
He cut the genius's hair.
No, I think he means did he ever accidentally snip somebody like their fingers or anything with the hedge?
Yeah, well, because he's menacing them with the hedge clippers, but does he actually ever is he threatening to cut their hair? I guess he is, because they sell it on commentary like he's going to cut Greg Valentine's beautiful blonde hair, as Jesse says. But
well, yeah, I don't think he ever cut somebody's hair with the hedge clippers. He would always use the scissors.
It's switch, because it was always a disappointment. You wanted to see him use the hedge clippers,
right,
thinking they were his. That's what he used, but
yeah.
Well, it's always we talked about this earlier. I don't like it when guys have a special item to the ring and it's a real weapon, because they can never use it convincingly.
And if they do, it just looks fake. Like Triple H with the sledgehammer. Anyone with half a brain is that'll kill you.
Well, he doesn't swing it properly.
Legend's a good example of that too. The mallets just didn't work.
Yeah, the mallets, the Sting with the baseball bat, even Chris Jericho with the baseball bat.
Yeah,
the oranges I'm fine with, but
right.
Well, even now, it happens in WWE. When people take chair shots, it's become so obvious. When they give someone their back to get hit with the chair, it really takes me out of the action. I don't understand why they can't do the headshots with the hands up to the chair with the chairs.
Because people will just want to take it, and you still graze it enough, and you hit it hard enough. I actually give props to WWF for that decision and making the decisions to not hit the head with those.
I don't want to see real headshots, but I feel like you can do it safely with your hands getting your hands up.
You would have to throw a light, because things can go wrong. You saw it with Sean Spears and Cody with the
Well, that was different. They tried
policy
Well, with Spears and Cody, he didn't get his hands up. He tried to hit him in the head with the chair, and they tried to gimmick. They tried to gimmick the chair.
But that's the whole point. Things can go wrong. So you don't get your hands up. You don't know, but you try to get your hands up in time, and you don't, or he hits you so hard your hand flies backward, and the chair still hits you in the head.
Then it's shame on you in this era for doing anything near the head. Right. Yeah. And it's funny that the Cody Spears thing, did it really help the story? I don't think so. I mean,
Spears didn't really. It's not like he got super over and people were going crazy that he was coming out with the chair. I mean, he slid down the card quick.
Immediately after that story, yeah.
Yeah.
Very different presentation of the figure four, but I think I prefer. It's tough. I love Valentine's figure four.
It's cool.
Wins with it. I like Coco selling it like he's trying to punch him, but his arms aren't long enough to reach him.
And Valentine with the win by submission.
He wins.
The Jimmy Hart celebration really helps punctuate the victory.
I remember. I remember this Saturday night's main event so vividly. Like our friends are just, we're all just waiting for a Hogan update or Hogan cut a promo to know he's okay. You know?
Yeah, because
after the match on Valentine, putting the figure 4 on again.
I do like his figure 4. I don't like Charlotte's figure 8. I think it looks too weird.
And Brutus is out for the save.
Ahead of his time, wearing his own T-shirt. I know Hogan wore stuff, but wearing his own T-shirt. I don't even know that was for sale, but
I think it might have been. I kind of remember seeing that one. Macho Man would wear his own shirt for promos, but not out to the ring.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So no Macho Man on the show, no Honky Tonk, no Heart Foundation. So none of these guys that we've seen quite a bit of, last year or 1987 shows. No one yet in 1988.
So Coco, Valentine escaped. Jimmy Hart's in the ring. Coco's holding Jimmy Hart's foot, and Brutus threatening to cut his hair. Yeah, you can't. Even though he did. Not here, but at WrestleMania. Oh,
he got some.
Oh, he got some.
He's really close to his head.
I know. I'd be freaked out. I don't know. Did he ever actually get any? Those are like some dull shears.
Like if he was cutting with them upside down almost,
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know if he did, because wouldn't he'd be like grabbing them and throwing them up in the air or something like that, and the crowd would go crazy. I do like how Jimmy's selling it like he's been
three cuts. You have a lot of hair.
Yeah.
I do like how Jimmy's selling it like he's like been disfigured.
Oh.
Yeah.
Coco already selling the figure 4.
I like how Andre the Giant's logo incorporates a ruler or a tape measure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we're going to get the update on Hogan's medical condition after the life of him was choked out of.
Yeah, they're replaying the choke. And now we got the backstage promo with Andre. His shirt is just drenched.
I do always a fan of the heel wearing a neck brace.
Yeah.
It's always good for some easy heat. And no one does it better than he did.
Yeah. Joe Guerrero III saying, I used to dig Randy debuting outfits. Always something new and different for typical WWF attire. WrestleMania 4, he had 4 matches, had a different outfit for each one. Jose Sorolla asking if I turned John Cena heel. I think the ship has passed on that. No. Justin?
Not now. No, I mean, if he ever has like a sustained run, but I don't think so.
Yeah.
And it feels like all his runs will be short. Savage, probably the least exciting Savage Mania outfit was maybe WrestleMania 6 as the King. Colorful attire, but
right.
WrestleMania 7 was great. I don't know. One against Crush, maybe.
Yeah, I didn't like when he started wearing the shirt and the pants with the streamers. I mean, that's kind of an iconic look for him, but I was always a fan of the capes and the headband and the trunks.
Yeah, I don't really care for the Macho King as much as like just regular Macho Man. It seems kind of gimmicky for.
Andre is just intense there. Did they say? Hold on. I forget if they announced.
It's coming up now, Raj. The update on his condition. I wouldn't have had him choke Gene Okerlund, because how does Gene withstand that?
No, I was going to say, did they announce that there's going to be a Friday night main event? Like, did they ever?
I don't think so.
I don't think they ever did.
No, it's not. They don't do a lot of that on these shows. They don't do a lot of like promotion for. They don't. They shoot the angles and stuff, but they don't like hammer home
like the date. It's almost like the date's not set.
I mean, they have the Royal Rumble, the first Royal Rumble between this Saturday night's main event and the main event, but they don't even plug that at all.
Yeah. Which is crazy how many people watch that show. So they're either flipping through the channels or,
Yeah,
or
I mean,
just
I don't
the
know.
commercials on NBC throughout the week. Because
I mean, this is your biggest audience right here. Is going to be people who are watching this episode of Saturday Night's Main Event.
Yeah.
Damage sustained to the windpipe. So they're trying to go back to that Ricky Steamboat type angle for Hulk here.
The year of the Giants. I do like how he's so happy. Jesse's so happy.
He's flexing. He's right.
Yeah, no announcement for the next date. Huh.
Doesn't matter, Raj. They hooked you.
Yeah, I mean, it worked out anyway. They didn't need to. And now we go to the credits.
Yeah, I mean, clearly. I mean, if they announced it, would they have had 40 million people watching instead of 30?
Yeah, 30. Yeah, it was 33, right? But think about that number. How insane that number is. I mean...
Yeah, it's like the Super Bowl, basically.
Different age.
I mean, like, I don't think anything outside of the Super Bowl would do 33 million viewers.
Today, no. Because even the playoffs and stuff, they did like, I want to say they did closer to like 17, 20 million.
Yeah, like, I think like a really big Sunday Night Football game will do like close to 20 million.
Yeah.
And then Monday Night Football's, which is a cable show, is kind of fluctuates. I think between like 7 million and 12 million, depending on the game.
Mm-hmm.
And so basically it's the Super Bowl and that's it. Of course, back in the 80s, there were more programming that would do I think like Dallas would do like 40 million each week. And that kind of stuff. But that's the show. Anyone else specifically? Raj, what was your favorite part of the show?
Oh, the choke. That was the whole thing. That was the whole show. Was that I found the rest of the show entertaining, but that moment, that really set things into motion. That really got this year going.
Also I love the Strike Force. Built the Strike Force into, a contender, I know they're contenders, but, they deserve to be champions. Help build a hammer for that WrestleMania match with Macho. Yeah, I mean, overall, and of course, the standout is Hogan Andre. Again, surprising there's no Savage, but I understand why. You got to focus on the program they want to build, which is Hogan Andre. So, yeah, just everything's clicking, and it's only going to get better. But what a another great episode too. Jesse Ventura really makes it special. Gene Okerlund does too. Another great night. Maybe not their best Saturday Night's Main Event yet, but it's up there.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, it was a great storyline Saturday Night's Main Event.
I agree.
Yeah, table setter. Yeah,
a really entertaining show. I like to show this. Obviously, you have the Hogan versus Andre angle, which is the big angle in the show. But I thought it was pretty entertaining, just with like some of the little stuff, like Sika having the giant hoagie roll because he's gonna kill Damien and he needs a big sandwich roll to put the snake in. Like that's just like goofy, fun stuff to watch, and you don't see like that kind of humor and physical comedy all the time on WWE programming. And the fact that it was kept serious.
Yeah, Jess, funny you say that. He wasn't a cartoon character because he did that. You know what I mean? You still thought
like he wasn't like The Miz or someone like that. He was still the Wild Simone. It's like, oh, bet he's serious. He's going to do that.
It's a Wild Simone. Yeah.
Yeah. All right, guys. I don't know. Did you have any trivia questions or anything?
I should have saved the tag team partners of Martel and Santana for this. Let's think of one. Tag team. 1988 WWF.
I got you last week with that Randy Savage WrestleMania opponent one.
I can't believe I forgot Greg Valentine.
Yeah.
This is the part we chop up this mistake. Let me think of a good trivia question.
If anyone in the chat has a good trivia question.
Yeah, let's go for
it.
I was thinking of one like who on this show be who had the most recent match in WWF but that's obviously Hogan.
Well, I'll ask one because he's been such a big Saturday Night's Main Event piece up till tonight. The mighty Hercules. Hercules, we're building Hercules, and it obviously hurts his push that Steamboat is done, right? Basically, especially as Intercontinental Champion. But Hercules does have a featured match at WrestleMania 4. Who is his opponent?
At WrestleMania 4?
Yeah.
The Ultimate Warrior?
Very good. Yeah. Ultimate Warrior.
Right. Yeah, so the Warrior's in the company at this point, right?
Yeah. Bruce is asking who won the match between the Bulldogs versus the Rougeaus at SummerSlam 88. I know this one, so I'll let you guys have at it.
It's the Rougeaus, right?
I feel like the Rougeaus were like classic time limit draws. But is it a time limit draw?
Time limit draw.
Yeah, they were. It just for whatever reason they were, and it was infuriating because it was one of those WWF rules, the E rules, that was never enforced except when they wanted it to be enforced. So as a viewer, it was just, what's the point? I just want to see a winner and a loser.
Yeah.
Well, the Rougeau brothers, the Bulldogs were almost out of the company by that point. I don't know how much longer they're in the company, or at least Dynamite's. Because they both leave, and then Bulldog comes back. But I'm pretty sure they're gone by the summer of '80. That might be, I don't know if that's our last pay-per-view match, but I would assume it is.
Davey Boy's jacked. They're not at Survivor Series '89, are they?
They were at Survivor Series.
'88.
Yeah.
Let me look that. I want to look that up real quick because I think because Dynamite's he's already had a lot of injuries. He's not the same guy. And
when Davey Boy was big. When he comes back, he is.
Yeah, their last match is at the '88 Survivor Series, which they won. They eliminated the last remaining opponents. Who were the last remaining opponents that the Bulldogs eliminated in the 1988 Survivor Series? The Powers of Pain. The Conquistadors. Very good, Justin.
Thank you.
Iconic outfits.
Yeah. And then when does Bulldog come back? He comes back before WrestleMania 7, around WrestleMania 7, right around there. Davey Boy.
Yeah.
Look up. He comes back in 1990. And he just goes by the British Bulldog.
Right, they dropped Davey Boy Smith.
It was very contentious between Davey Boy and Dynamite that Davey Boy, it's Davey Boy trademark. I think he trademarked the name, the British Bulldog, because then he uses it when he goes to WCW, I believe. And then he, Dynamite couldn't use it for signings and that kind of thing.
Here's a good one. What are the two names of the British Bulldogs mascots? The British Bulldogs.
Of course, we know that is a good question. Matilda's an easy one.
Mm-hmm.
How about the second one?
Winston, right?
I think so.
I believe it's Winston.
I wish we knew stuff that was relevant to the world.
I didn't know it was Winston, but now that Raj says it's Winston, and now I remember it being Winston.
Yeah, he didn't have that dog for long. He stopped. I think it was just for 6 months or something.
Well, it must be hard to keep it. I mean, I've never been on a plane took my dog on a plane before or anything like that. I can't imagine traveling. All these guys had, we talked about it. You got Frankie the parrot. You've got the Matilda the dog. You've got Damien the snake. You've got all of these animal mascots, and it must have been. I don't know if that's factored into the guy's travel expenses. Did Jake the Snake have to pay for travel expenses related to Damien because it was his gimmick?
Speaking of which, who were Jake the Snake's siblings in the WWF?
In real life?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I know this.
Sam Houston.
That's one.
That's one. It's I know who it is. It's a woman, right?
Yep.
Rockin' Robin?
Yep.
Yes,
there you go.
yes. What is it?
All
I knew
right.
it was that. Well, Jake's father, Grizzly Smith, was a pretty big star in the territories, and then so all his kids got into wrestling, and obviously Jake had the most success.
Yeah. All right, guys, I need to get back on this story. But it was great doing this. It was a great time as always.
Yep.
I wish WWE wouldn't break news right before we're about to focus for 2 hours on this.
Jeez, I know.
Yeah. Justin, do you want to plug anything? I know you had a big interview this week.
Yes, Mongo McMichael. I know there'll be a story tomorrow. I don't know if I'm going to go Heyman or I'm working on a couple different pieces for this weekend. But there'll certainly be a story tomorrow. So if you follow me, my Twitter handle is @Justin Barrasso. I'll post tomorrow, maybe 2, but certainly active tomorrow with the piece, with the goings on in WWE and more.
I have a column I have running tomorrow, The Views from the Turnbuckle, which will be out tomorrow morning. I did write it about kind of a comparison between Drew McIntyre and Braun Strowman and how they've been booked since WrestleMania, and kind of how is that a reflection on Raw creative and SmackDown creative, and who are those people in charge. And obviously that has changed since I wrote the article. So after we wrap this up, I'm going to go back in and have to make some changes to it to make it more timely, but I think it'll be interesting to read specifically after what we just saw happen tonight.
Yeah. And also on Wrestling Inc., we have exclusive interviews as always. We got Wade Boggs, the legendary Wade Boggs. We got Joey Ryan, and then tons of cool stuff coming up next week. So including Stu Bennett, who else? Taya Valkyrie, and much more. So keep checking out WrestlingInc.com.
Mm-hmm. And like the wrestling world is just, I mean, pandemic or not, there's been no shortage. It's been nonstop really since March.
Yeah.
I mean, just news, constant news flow.
I know. I mean, I thought I was trying to think of content and stuff that, when the pandemic started, that I could start pushing out because there's going to be no TV shows or anything, and that never happened. So
right.
It's been crazy. The news has not stopped.
All right, and like I said, next week we're going to be back. We're going to be going over the main event, which I guess is not technically Saturday night's main event in canon, but we're going to make an exception because it's basically the biggest show in WWE history. And we'll be back here Thursday night. Like I said, thanks a lot, everyone who watches, everyone who's listening to the podcast, people who watch live, everyone in the comment section. We love your participation. And thanks a lot, and we'll see you again next week.